the Geek Features writer for the Chicago Red-Eye and Geek to Me. So I have been given the distinct privilege to be able to sit down with Charlaine Harris this afternoon to talk about a lot of different things. Talk about your new book, Midnight Crossing. Midnight Crossroads. I'm nearsighted, so I have to go like this to read books. But I feel like one of those talk show hosts, you know, when they do the book up there. And but before we get into Midnight Crossroads, I think it's time we address the elephant in the room. And I think you all know what I'm talking about, right? Okay, so a lot of times writers make really interesting judgments when it comes to what happens with the characters in their books. And a lot of times those choices that you make with those characters stir up a lot of controversy. They make readers angry, and they write angry letters to the author, and they say stuff online, and they do all these things. So Charlaine, I need to ask you, Game of Thrones! What is that dude thinking? I mean, Martin just wants to torture me. What? You're a writer. You know what it's like to have characters that people care about, and then just things happen, and the readers don't like it. I know, but I know that probably never happened to you. Because all your fans are happy with you. But what was George R.R. Martin thinking? Come on, help me here.
Well, he was probably thinking that he originated the characters, so he had ultimate power over them because they were his creations. That would just be a guess.
There is a thing about that when you create characters, and I mean, I know, well, first, did you ever think that so many people would care so deeply for the characters that you created?
No, I never did. I don't think any writer can really foresee the impact of such a kind of overwhelming success. It is overwhelming, and it's a constant surprise to me that people take me seriously. I mean, after all, for God's sakes, I write about a telepathic barmaid. Oh, what's the deal? But people do get really invested, which is flattering and scary.
But you talk about it being flattering and scary, but like, has there ever been something that you did that didn't quite take off the way you'd hoped? Well, yeah.
My whole career prior to that. Yes, I spent many years on the mid-list, and not even the middle of the mid-list, but the lower mid-list, like the little brick house with one bedroom. Sure, I tried numerous things, and I've always been the same writer I am, and it still seems very mysterious to me that some things I did never really took off, and I'm still the same writer, and something I did was suddenly so phenomenal. We call it the claw, those weird little booths that they have in front of Walmart, or maybe not here in Chicago, but
we have Walmart here.
Where they have the stuffed animals and you put in $1 or whatever, and the claw goes down, and you always try to get the pink bunny, and you never end up with a pink bunny. You lose your $1. But when we get really lucky, we say the claw picked us up, because out of all the bunnies in the bin, the claw got us and lifted us, which is kind of a tortured way to say I have no idea why some things hit and other things never do. The nicest side effect of the Sookie books being so popular is that all my previous work is back in print, even books that didn't sell nearly so well when I actually wrote them.
Like which titles would you bring to mind that you really like folks to discover right now?
Well, the Aurora Teagarden series, very conventional mystery series about a librarian in Georgia. Pre-cell phone, if you read the books now, there aren't any cell phones, there aren't, then the Lily Bard series, I was really proud of those, and I really thought, okay, this is the series that's going to do it for me. Really hard series, really cold series about a woman with a terrible past, and I thought, you know, I did the best writing I could on these. This is what will do it for me, and still not, you know.
Well, what is that, if you can take me through a day with Charlaine Harris, you're working on your new series now, and you have this writer's process. How does your day fit in with your writing process? Because I know you do more than write. You have, a husband to take care of.
I do.
Which, you were talking about on the way here, the plan that you have in place,
That's
for your husband. Could you explain? I think that's a really good plan. For those of you who have someone that you need to take care of too, I would follow this plan. Yeah.
You all are, for the most part, too young to remember when generic things became popular for the first time, and they were a wonder. Things that had no name, they were generic cigarettes. There was a generic book. It was 25 pages long. And at the end of this plot, the last page was, and then they all got run over by a bus. And I thought, okay, so that is our family code now for things we don't want to be forgotten. I'll say, in case I get run over by a bus, remember that we're due to take a casserole to the church. Or in case I get run over by a bus, your new socks are in the left-hand drawer. So that's just our way of hedging against fate in case we get run over by a bus, which there are none in the town we live in. So it's a real far shot, but just in case.
In case we get hit by a meteorite.
In case we get hit by a meteorite.
But about when you sit down and write, how is that? I know I've had. Well, there's another Harris that I'm very fond of, as far as writing. Thomas Harris says that when he sits down and he writes, he essentially sits in the room with the characters and listens to them talk and just transcribes what they write. How's our process for you?
That must be so scary.
Yeah. So many people in his head.
Weirdly, we grew up in the same geographic area, which is kind of weird when you think I grew up in Tunica, Mississippi. But I was a good friend of his cousins. Anyway, an ideal day, which I almost never get, is I get to the computer by 8:30 and I answer my emails and take care of social media, which is my professional Facebook page and my website, on which I review books. So, if you ever want a recommendation on a good book to read, go look. It's under Book and Blog. You don't have to read the blog because that's just whatever it occurred to me to talk about. It's usually pretty inconsequential, except when I get mad about something. But the books part, I love to recommend good books. I don't talk about books I didn't like. I'm not a book reviewer, I'm a book recommender. So I will tell you at length about books I liked, and please, give them a shot. But after I do that, I start out by reading what I wrote the day before. And I rework that and revise that and smooth it out and rearrange it, and then I start into new material. If it's really a good day, I'll get 6 to 8 pages.
Wow. Now, on average, how long does it take you to get those pages in?
Depends on how. If I have a great idea, I can do that in an hour and a half, 2 hours. But if it's a creepy, crawling day, it takes much longer.
Yeah, I'm thinking in my own head, too, that's a lot of pages.
It is for me. I know writers who can produce much faster than that, but that's just not me.
Yeah, that's unnatural. They say when the Stephen King gets writer's block, he's like, That's crazy. Of course, you folks are free to ask questions too. We have a nice group here, so I don't see a microphone. So if you just want to raise your hand, I can point to you. Just make sure you speak clearly. We can answer your questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to monopolize her all afternoon.
When you're writing, obviously you say you write so much a day, and if you get a great idea, but do you always have like an idea of where a book's going to go ahead of time? No.
I do not always know where the book is going to go because I don't know if any of you went to the previous panel. I'm very easily bored. So my day is a long exercise in keeping myself entertained. And part of that entertainment is not knowing what I'm going to do next, which is the fun part, the crazy part. And sometimes I think it would be really nice if I knew what I was going to do, but then I think, it would also be kind of boring. So it's just whatever happens that day is what's going to happen. In the scene in the Sookie books where Sookie finds a grave in the woods and they dig it up to find out who's in there, I put 3 different people in there, not at the same time, but consecutively. And I opened the grave and I looked inside, which is sort of Thomas Harris. I opened the grave and I looked inside, and the first person it wasn't fun. So I filled it back in, and then I dug it up again and I looked inside, and this time it was somebody else. And I said, maybe. Filled it back in, reopened it, looked inside, this was right, the right body. So that's how I work. I think, what would be the most fun thing to happen? And if things really get slow, I kill someone.
I assume your characters are afraid of you.
And they ought to be.
Can I ask who the 3 bodies were? Or the first 2?
If I remember correctly, I don't remember who they were. They probably were not significant characters, but the third one was the right person to begin there, and I recognized it. I can't even remember who they were now. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Probably I should make little notes about things like
Bill, Eric, and Sam. That's what you wanted to hear, right?
There's a hand back there with a person.
Along the lines of what we're talking about, is there anybody who you killed off that you're like, oh crap?
Yeah, sure. Claudine.
Oh.
I feel bad about Claudine. And I'm just apologizing for it now. I'm sorry. I just had so many people in the books. And I thought, well, the best way to clear the decks is to, kill a lot of them, which I enjoy doing anyway. But I do feel bad about Claudine. And afterwards, someone said, do you have a prejudice against pregnant women? Because you killed 2 pregnant women in one book, which is kind of forbidden anyway, And I said, no, I've been pregnant a number of times myself. And I have no animus against pregnant women, but I was just, but that was 2 for 1. So I do apologize. Claudine should have lived.
Supernatural book, you bring her back.
Not a fairy.
You make the rules.
Yeah.
Fairies are
Writers
not.
do it all the time.
How do you feel about the way the show has turned as opposed to the book?
Okay, I feel richer. I feel pretty good about it because Alan didn't promise to film the books faithfully. He couldn't. They're told in the first person. He can't. Anna couldn't be on screen every moment, and we couldn't see all the action through her eyes. That wouldn't make for good television. But in the process of making good television, which I think Alan has definitely done, he started going broader and broader in his, the political leanings of the show, and finally took it away from a more personal show to a show with a bigger scope. Now that Brian Buckner is the showrunner, he's been trying to scale it back down, and we'll see what the last season is like. They're filming it right now, so fingers crossed.
Way back.
I love you, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I love you. How did you decide who Sookie was going to end up in the end? Who she was going to end up with?
I knew it from the beginning. So there was no big surprise to me anyway, though apparently to a few thousand readers. It was a big surprise, but I knew from the beginning, and I stayed true to my lights on that, and I did everything but draw a directional arrow going this one, this one, this one. But I guess, and I blame Alexander Skarsgård. And I told him so. What for? I said, I couldn't say for being so damn attractive. I just said, it's your fault.
I mean, J.K. Rowling came out and said that she starts to regret putting Ginny and Harry together at the end of the books.
Oh, she should never have said that publicly, in my opinion.
So what do you think about that when it comes to, let's say, even authors kind of doubling back on decisions they've made in relation to what the fans' expectations are?
I had a number of suggestions. Some of them weren't printable when I finished the Sookie novels. The weirdest one was that the fans wanted to buy the rights to the characters so they could rewrite the ending to suit themselves.
Oh.
No, not my character.
That's what fanfic is for.
Yeah, that's what fanfic is for. So
Exactly.
on to new and different things.
Speaking of new and different things, Midnight Crossroads. It's first in the new series. It's a novel of Midnight, Texas. So we're going from the Deep South to George Bush's America. No. Tell us a little bit about this, and where did the idea for Midnight Crossroads?
Well, when I grew up, and stop me if I bore you, don't really. Every summer I went to Texas because my mother's parents owned a little hotel in a town called Rock Springs, Texas. And every summer my mother would go help them during rodeo, which was the only time of the year when the hotel was full. And we're not talking, hotel with suites and stuff. We're talking one bathroom in the hall, all rooms. I mean, old-fashioned hotel, no air conditioning. Take that, smoke it. So I started thinking about Texas, and I thought I'd always planned someday to work that into what I was writing. And I thought, I've been thinking a lot about Crossroads, which are traditionally magical. That's also where suicides are buried. So there's a lot of mystical stuff connected with Crossroads. And I thought, and also pawn shops, who knows where, my mind will wander. I think pawn shops are pretty incredible. Not real pawn shops, but the kind of pawn shop I would build. Real pawn shops have like old tools in them. And televisions, that's what everybody pawns now, they're flat screen, and gold chains, and guns, right? In Texas anyway. So I started thinking about what a wonderful pawn shop I could build, with all kinds of magical stuff and weird things in it. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to visit some of the characters I've written about over the years, people I've really missed. Like, I don't know if any of you read the Shakespeare books, but Bobo Winthrop, I thought, oh, what's Bobo doing, So he's in there, older and wiser. And Manfred Bernardo from the Harper Conway books is there, and other characters from other series, and they're there, but there are not very many other people in Midnight, Texas. Not very many other people at all. So it's a very small cast, but I'm telling it in the third person and writing from male and female points of view, which for me is quite neat.
It's interesting when we were on our way up here, and they sent me the book earlier this week, and I didn't get a chance to, to finish it. I got to a point, I'm like, okay, I got to prep for this this panel, and I go to Charlaine and I go, I read the book, and she goes, you haven't told me if you like it or not. And then we're on the elevator, and I'm thinking of something else. I'm like, oh crap, she asked me if I liked it or not. I went, no, yes, of course I liked it. She went, you made me wait.
It's just like the shows where somebody's going to get voted off the island. Let's count. 1, 2, 3.
And there you go. What is it about, I'm sorry, is there other questions? Because I'm sorry, I can take over here, I'm sorry.
So with Midnight Crossing, I know with Sookie, in the beginning, you kind of didn't know how long maybe you were going to do the series for. You said it's going to end on an odd numbered book or whatever. Do you have an idea with this, if it's going to be a longer series or?
I've signed for 3.
Okay.
And I don't want to, I'll see how I feel after 3.
Okay.
You know, I want to write 3 good books, not 3 good ones and 3 mediocre ones. I want consistency to stay high on this.
And do you have an ending in mind already, like you said you did with Sookie? Kind of thing?
Not so much. I've written the plots for 3 books, and Penguin in their wisdom required me to turn in 3 plots before I started, so they would be sure I had them. So I can't just wing it, you know.
But you could end every plot with, and they all got run over by a bus.
Next book, completely different population, but they'll all get run over by a bus. It's that Crossroads thing. Watch out for buses.
So, in all of your stories, you have very different female leads, and there is a lot of attention paid to wardrobe, especially just thinking of some of the bizarre stuff that Sookie wears. How do you come up with that? I mean, like, why do you pay so much attention to what the ladies are wearing?
Truthfully, I did not know I did till someone pointed it out to me. That was totally unconscious. Like, at one panel, someone said, "You really have a thing about brothers, don't you?" Because I always have a controversial brother somewhere in the book, and I'm going, I didn't realize that. I'm going to think about that a little bit. I didn't realize I was paying so much attention to wardrobes, but I guess I thought people would care. I mean, people like to visualize the protagonist.
Yes.
I thought they would like a clue as to what she had on. And I realized some of Sookie's clothes were kind of weird. I did. But only in a vague kind of way, because I'm not really style conscious. I know that astounds you. but it's true. And in fact, now that I have a very stylish daughter-in-law now, so I just kind of watch her when I'm trying to think of some really good outfit for someone to wear. She's much more aware than I am, so maybe you'll see better clothes than this.
You know, it's interesting that she mentioned that because the attention to detail, the small stuff, is actually why the ending of the vampire series worked for me. Because this is not a girl who was going to be a vampire queen. She cleaned her kitchen. You know, she liked cleaning her kitchen. She's an earth creature and she's a sun creature. And she always wanted to stay that way.
She did.
So that's what sold the ending for me, is all those little silly details that made up her life that she didn't want to leave.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Being a solo author, how was it when you wrote the graphic novel with 2 other people?
You know, I'm glad you asked that because I thought it was going to be terrible. I thought it was going to be very, very difficult to do. But working with Chris Golden, first off, is a great guy. He is a prince among men. And he's very family-oriented, and I'm very family-oriented. So that part of our character blended well together. And he was super patient about teaching me the process of writing a graphic novel. The format is very different from writing a book. I mean, there's a specific format to follow when you're writing a graphic novel. And I was totally clueless about all this. So it was great to have him teach me, and it was great to see how he did his part of the work. What we've been doing is he'll write a few pages, send it to me after a long lag time. I write a few pages and send it back, and he reads what I've written, and then, you know, we kind of go back and forth like that. And it's worked out very, very well for us, I think. Also, after that, he produced an anthology called Dark Duos, and he asked me to be in it, and I thought, who will I ask? Honestly, it was like being a guy trying to ask someone to the prom. It was so scary. I thought, oh man, no wonder I was so intent on asking someone who wouldn't say no. I thought, oh, who could I ask? No, he turned me down. Who could? I mean, it was just ridiculous. In the end, I asked Rachel Kane, who was a friend of mine, Roxanne Conrad, and just a very prolific and fast writer. And she said, sure, here's a first draft, practically, by return email. And it just worked out great. So maybe I'm going to be better about that than I ever was. It's opened a big door for me.
As the earlier panel, you mentioned something about, like, you said that Bill had a secret and it surprised you when he was talking about kind of his relationship with Sookie. When you have a character and you know that they have a secret, do you just kind of let them kind of surprise you, or do you do something to draw that out if you know that you will need it?
I wait till I need it. I wait till I need that moment in the book where people are ready to have a release from tension. That's where I save the humor for. When things become too tense or too tedious, you have to have a touch of humor. You have to have a touch of a big shock, or you have to kill someone. And since I can't kill someone all the time, I save surprises and funny things for the other moments, because that, to me, that's the fun of the book, is making the path more interesting to read by giving those little bonuses all along the way.
I've asked one already.
I asked one, but I just wanted to compliment you on the character of Andre. He was phenomenal. The in-depth, I really read into Andre. He was just phenomenal.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow.
I mean, even though you killed him off,
I was waiting for that.
he was a character that I wish you almost hadn't killed.
Yeah, but sometimes those are the people you really need to kill.
Right, but it's just one of those that I actually wish he had formed a bond with Sookie.
Well, he was a one-person guy, and she wasn't his person.
Oh, no, I understand that.
So that would have been weird, but I love making the extra characters really vivid. To me, that's the fun, all these really interesting people walking around. And I've got to hope it makes it more fun for you all, too.
Since we're talking about killing off characters, did you have one that you really enjoyed? Like, I really want to kill this one off. Like, how am I going to do it? Like, your favorite kill?
That did not sound creepy at all.
Probably, I don't know if any of you have read the Aurora Teagarden books, but there was a really awful police detective in there. And I had read this article years ago and this just happened recently, except the kid lives somehow. A guy tried to stow away in the wheel well of a jet.
Yes.
And the wheels let down when they came in for a landing. And they found his body and buried 6 inches deep in a garden. And I thought, cool. I've got to use that someday. So I pinned it up on my bulletin board. And when I was trying to think about a way to kill the police detective, I thought, I'm just going to drop him in a garden. I did, and it was just so much fun. Except he lands in Aurora Teagarden's garden, which is not good for her, but it had to happen. It's a murder mystery.
I don't know if I should be concerned that you really enjoy that idea. You're like, this is much fun.
It's cool.
Going back to the graphic novels just really quickly, have you read the True Blood comics, and what do you think of them?
I haven't read them, and because they own all the licensing rights for the series, so I don't make any money off of them.
I was wondering.
My incentive to read them is, now. I just haven't picked them up. If they sent me copies, I would read them, but I'm not going to, I know, cheapo. But They send me screeners of the show. I get the show a few days ahead of everyone with a big CH stamped in the corner so I can't sell them on eBay. Which I wouldn't.
Or would they be worth more?
I was gonna say, that's like Charlaine Harris. You can sign them?
Oh, don't tell HBO that. No, they've really been very fair and above board, but, they don't send me all the merchandise. So I just haven't seen them. They may be great.
And they use a lot of photos sometimes on the covers from the show, along with the artists.
Oh, okay.
So they kind of tie, yeah.
Do you write chronologically, or do you ever get like an idea for like a later scene and go ahead and write that and then come back to, or do you just write chronologically?
Though I have things planned out in my head, I write chronologically. But in my head, when I'm planning the book, I may start with the end or the middle, the key scene of the book. But when I start to write the book, I've figured out where I have to start to get to that point and then continue on.
There's so much about the characters in all your books that have to do, of course, with magic, mysticism, culture of the areas. I'm curious as to, with the Midnight Crossroads, what are maybe some of the significant differences that readers are going to discover between, Midnight Texas and, Bonton, Louisiana?
Well, there's not as much water. Midnight Texas is a whole different terrain. It's drier, it's more desert-like. Even the deer are smaller, the trees are smaller. And the people come from a different culture too, except almost all the people in this are transplants, so they're not going to be your typical Texas people. It's a small, dusty, dry town that is dying. Most of the shops are boarded up. The other towns to the north and to the west are bigger and more flourishing. There's a lake that runs to the north, and that's where most of the income for the area comes in, from tourists who come to boat, fish, whatever. So it's quite different. It's not off any interstate in any easy distance. But if you drive, you can get to Dallas within a reasonable length of time. It's west of Dallas. So it's quite different geographically, and the whole, the way the town feels is different too. It's not a town that's bursting with life.
Is there a character in the new series that you know is going to come, like in your own head, this is going to be a revelation for readers?
A revelation, that's a big word. I'd settle for charming. I love Fiji Kavanaugh in here. She's a witch who's much more powerful than anybody thinks. And she turned out to be a really fun character for me to write. She lives in her great aunt's house that was left to her. Her great aunt was the town witch. And she left Fiji the house, and Fiji's doing her best to make a good life for herself. She's really a really average woman in a lot of ways, except she has this amazing talent that she is just learning how to use to make her own life easier and to really frighten everybody else.
Now, how many of you here have actually, you've read the book here, you got a hold of it? Oh, yeah. Because you can only get it here right now. You know that. You can only get it here right now. And it's,
Right now, here?
right here at C2E2, at the Anderson's book. Look at that, all right.
It's not for sale
Until May 6th. My birthday is on May 6th.
and I planned this all for Elliot.
All for me. This is the best birthday card ever.
My birthday's today.
Are you for reals? You for serious?
And Charlaine, just by the way, this would be our second time meeting, because the last time we met, I said I was going to flirt with you locally, so you need to sell your husband.
She already imagines him dying in a fiery bus crash.
That is a bold
I'm sorry.
assertion. Bold assertion.
It's like the same thing. fiery bus crash, run over by a bus.
See, in our family, it's you're dead in a ditch.
Dead in a ditch.
Dead in a ditch by mysterious means, no doubt.
Well, the thing is when last year when I was coming home from Alabama, I actually rolled the car into a ditch, and I rolled it over, and I called from the phone, and I said, by the way, I'm dead in a ditch. And they said, what do you mean? I said, I actually rolled the car into a ditch, and I'm dead in a ditch. And my husband's like, are you serious? And I said, yes, I'm in a ditch. He said, I'll be right there.
The first question I would have asked was, if you're dead, how did you dial the phone?
That's what he asked by the time I got to the hospital.
By the time you got there, right? Yes, right back there.
Your book mainly primarily take place in the South, and my question is, what is it about the South that you enjoy writing about, and would you ever possibly think about writing for maybe someplace not the South, like maybe in the East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, something like that?
You know, okay, I thought of a really funny answer, but it would be mildly insulting, so I'm just not going to do it. No, you know, I just thought, I don't have any Yankee in me. But that's not true, and that's a silly thing to think now. I'm just so Southern. I just feel like I know the people, and I know how things work, and I know how people would react, and probably that's all just universal. But I just feel I'm just not convinced I could write a book about Michigan, you know, with the same authenticity with which I write about the South. And since I haven't run out of things about the South to say, I'll probably stay there. Now, if I run out of things to say about the South, I'll relocate in a jiffy. But as of now, that just hasn't
We just
happened.
wear bigger coats in the North. That's all it is.
I wrote one part of one of the Aurora Tea Garden books is in Ohio, and for me that was a real stretch. Ohio.
Nothing good comes from Ohio.
Well, it turned out nothing did.
No, that's it.
What inspired you to start writing about supernatural beings and the fables?
I just got tired of writing about, I got tired of writing conventional mysteries. I just wanted to do something different, easily bored, remember? So I decided I would just go into the supernatural, which was a big taboo in mysteries then. But, you know, it's like waving a red flag. I had to do it. And it worked out well, but it turned out that the first Sookie book took 2 years for my agent to sell. Nobody wanted it. You know, I enjoy that now a lot because it got turned down quite a bit. And I'm going, ha.
Did you have to do a lot of research to learn about the fan world, or did you just kind of jump in?
I pretty much jumped in. I did some basic research, especially about the Fae. But there again, there wasn't a fairy wasn't going to pop up to, you know, tell me I was doing it wrong. So I felt pretty good about doing, you know, pretty much using whatever I wanted. I did some basic research into Irish names and Scottish names and so on. And I found a great website that told me how to pronounce them, and another great website that told me the meaning. They never agreed. Never. So I just said, well, I guess it's just up to me. So.
Right over there.
You built these like huge, expansive worlds that are set within our own world, like a complete alternate universe. How do you keep that straight, and how have you kept it like in line with like the modern zeitgeist?
Well, I don't really worry about the modern zeitgeist too much. But as far as keeping it straight, I don't do that very well either, I'm afraid. But I did finally hire someone to do my continuity for me because I was having so many issues keeping it all straight in my head. I was making mistakes that I didn't want to make because, believe me, I don't enjoy making mistakes. It's not like I'm pop quizzing my readers all the time by putting mistakes in there to see if they catch them. But I was writing really fast, and for a while I was writing 2 books a year. I was writing not only a Sookie book, but a Harper Conley. in a year. And for me, that turned out to be excruciatingly uncomfortable to where I wasn't having any fun. But I was also making more mistakes. So I had to slow down, and I had to have somebody help me by keeping the computer base of the characters and what color car they drove, and all that stuff that I never paid any attention to. But somebody's got to, it turns out.
I'm curious, as a writer myself, when you're constructing your mystery, readers these days are really tough to trick, really tough to fool, really tough to surprise. What's the secret? How do you do it? And can I duplicate that?
I find it's hard to plant, that's one of the rules of mystery, you have to plant sufficient clues to enable the reader to figure out the murderer if the reader chooses to do that. I'm a reader who never chose to do that, and I find if I instantly know who the murderer is just by the way the writer writes the character, then I'm indignant because I want to be confused, I want to be surprised, I want to be amazed. So really, I think that part really comes from experience.
Any budding writers in the audience here? Want to do?
Oh, good.
I'm sorry, was a hand going up for a question? Yes.
You mentioned earlier that you've been doing some book recommendations on your site. Who are some of the authors that really inspire you right now?
First off, let me just say inspire is such a weird word. I never know really how to interpret that. But some of the writers who are so exciting that they make me want to keep on writing, I can relate to that. I think Patricia Briggs is great. Chloe Neal is great. Jim Butcher is one of my favorites. I still like Laurel K. Hamilton. I love the energy and her inventiveness. And there are a number of other writers. I like, on the romancy side, Janine Frost is fantastic. Love her books. Karen Chance, too. On the mystery side, Lee Child, Robert Craze, Margaret Maron, wonderful, Laura Lippman. They're all great writers. Really, there is so much good to read now. There is no excuse for saying, oh, I just can't find a good book to read.
How about how much time do you spend reading, other works?
Well, I probably read 2 books a week, sometimes 3. I'm a fast reader.
Wow. Yes.
In the vein of dealing with your fans and stuff like that, do you ever bother to read some of the reviews people write, or as a writer, you just ignore that because you feel like we're going to look back at the writing?
That's a touchy question.
Sorry.
I read, no, it's fair. I read reviews by people I know. If it's by someone I don't know, after the reviews I've gotten, say on Amazon, that, gave me a 1 because they didn't like the font, or they gave Cemetery Girl a 1 because they didn't know they were buying a graphic novel.
I can't stand 10-point Habakkuk,
I have to disregard that because those alleged reviews, and most of them aren't reviews, they're hatchet jobs, are written under anonymity, and I put my name on everything I write.
What kind of advice do you give to writers who are coming from the same place that you came from? Or just in general, we know we have some aspiring writers in the audience here. You have a life to live, but you also want to create something that you hope goes on. What kind of advice would you give?
If you're driven to being a writer, first off, I would advise you to do anything else in the world, because it is a hard job, and the number of publishers is getting smaller, which means there are less places to submit your work. On the other hand, with e-publishing, there are more avenues in which to publish if you decide not to go the traditional route. So there are some decisions you have to make. Thank you, she said 10 minutes.
Sorry.
So the first responsibility of the writer is to write the best book you can. That is the first responsibility of a writer. The very best book you can write. Don't show it to your mom or your best friend who has to say it's good. Find someone else who writes, who will give you a peer's viewpoint. And I know sometimes that's very hard to find, someone who has no axe to grind. I have some peers who are wonderful about looking at my work before it goes to my publisher and giving me an honest assessment of its strengths and weaknesses. But that's what you need. You need to have somebody look at it in a fair and impartial way. First, this is the part most people miss. You've got to put your butt in a chair, shut the door, and write. Most people say, now after I've written the book, what do I do? Don't worry about that yet. Write the book and make sure it's good. Then there's so much research online about how to get published. There's no reason you have to find this a mystifying process anymore. It is not a mystical process. There is plenty online. There are plenty of books. There's plenty of websites about how to get published now. And you can read them and digest them.
And how do you think social networking factors into an author promoting themselves?
I think you can't ignore it now. I'm reluctantly having to start Twittering.
It's called tweeting.
Is it?
You tweet on Twitter.
You tweet on Twitter?
You tweet
Okay.
on Twitter.
That shows how enthusiastic I am. My daughter tweets for me.
She tweets for you?
She tweets for me. Because I was told it was absolutely necessary for me to do this. But I have my professional Facebook page, and it's kept up to date, somewhat by me, mostly by the admins at Penguin, which is super helpful. I have my website, which I try to keep up to date with where I'm going to be and what I'm going to be doing. And I have a website, Maven, who actually does the work on that, though I do all the material for it. And I try to keep current about what's going on, and maybe not so much about the Twittering, but
Tweeting. Okay, so just so you know what's going on right now, right after this, Charlaine will be going back to her signing at Table 1. You can go over there. You can also pick up the book, Midnight Crossroads, which isn't out yet. It's not out for at least until my birthday, May 6th, my birthday. I expect cards from all of you.
And where do we send them?
redeyegeek@gmail.com. Thank you. And then of course, Charlie, you'll be signing the book too, right?
I will be, gladly, eagerly, joyously.
Will you sign in Sookie book, the last Sookie book, if it's purchased that?
No, under no circumstances. Yes, of course. I'm proud of everything I've written. Don't get me wrong. Everything I've written, I worked really hard on. I'm not embarrassed, ashamed, or in any way feeling that I did less than my best.
Right.
Well, you know what? I can't think of a better way to end this. Thank you so much. Round of applause for Charlaine Harris. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Hey listeners, this is Micus, creator of the kind of epic theme song Zombie Kids. If you're interested in finding out more about my music, you can check me out at micusmusic.com. Also, I am on iTunes, Facebook, and SoundCloud. You can look me up as Micus Music, and that's M-I-K-U-S, and you know the rest. Alright, peace out everyone, keep listening.